from Castle Goring, from Vicky, Aurora, and from me. Well, hopefully, Aurora is going to allow me to plunge in because we have a lot of ground to cover today. Well, we're going to have a little fun right now, if we may, because Divya has asked me. I'm sorry for laughing, it's so ludicrous. Isn't Marcus Anderson not Prince Andrew's love child from Canada? That is, son of Andrew equal Anderson. Yes. Anders' son is Anderson. Anders is not an English name. You have Johansson, Friedrichsen, you name it, son of. Well, it's not Andrew's son, it's Anderson. And I know there is the rumour that Marcus Anderson is Prince Andrew's love child from when Andrew went to visit in Canada. But I'm afraid there's absolutely no truth whatsoever to it. Having said that, I have to tell you, I just got a little phone call from a certain royal who told me something really interesting that is floating around parliamentary circles at the moment about Andrew and Meghan, and how Andrew and Meghan originally met at Soho House. I don't believe a word of it, but that's definitely what I'm going to be saying, and I'm going to be sticking to it for a while. I don't believe a word of it. But this is something that is now floating around in very elevated parliamentary circles. I'm sorry for laughing. Because insofar as I'm aware, Andrew doesn't really have a profile at Soho House. I know his daughters did, but he didn't. But it just goes to show, I mean, I suppose when you're in the news, you're in the news. Yes, Aurora. And Aurora says she wants to be in the news as well. Okay, baby girl, yes. Why don't you go and sit over there? That's a good girl, good girl. I mean, I don't know what else to do but laugh. Barbara Perkins makes a very interesting point. She says any potential investor can see why Spotify and Netflix have been taken by the grifter and are running for the doors. Ted Sarandos does not deserve to be a CEO if he can't see what Ms. Meghan is after all she's done to ruin Netflix. Barbara Perkins, Ted Sarandos made a judgment call at the time that nobody at board level in the entertainment industry in the United States would condemn him for. And he has been extricating himself fairly decently and with respect to the shareholders of Netflix. Yes, now everybody can see as a result of the debacle that has happened at Spotify and then subsequently at Netflix. But Netflix got a very good show out of it. It got the Harry and Meghan Tales of Woe, and that did very well. So, of course, he's changed his position. He's simply been clever enough and corporate enough to do it in such a way that he hasn't embarrassed himself or the company. You know, everything's great, everything's great, everything's great is a very Hollywood thing. Everything's fabulous, as you are actually finding the most, shall we say, discreet moment of jettisoning the person that you're, oh, they're so great, when the accountant's line is a totally different message. So I don't think that we need to perturb ourselves unduly over the fact that Ted Sarandis did what he did. And the mere fact that he's still, at the time of this being done, still the joint CEO of Netflix, tells you that the board actually doesn't want to be rid of him. Because had they wanted to be rid of him, they could find a way of getting rid of him. But they haven't got rid of him. Let's remember that. So, and also, when you're dealing with high-profile individuals who you want to jettison, if you are a clever corporation, you do it by burying them with praise, which is what Ted Sarandis has been doing. Yes, he was more of a supporter of Meghan's than many of the other board members, but the mere fact he's still a board member and his position hasn't so far been called into question means that there is complicity and agreement at board level. It was simply the neatest and cleanest way of getting rid of Meghan and Harry, and doing it in such a way that there's no comeback onto Netflix, and also that they have kept the door open, I think rather naively, in the hope of some divorce deal. The mere fact that Meghan was hawking around the possibility of a divorce memoir, as Vanity Fair confirmed, would indicate that she has had some thoughts as to departure. However, Netflix has been clever enough to understand that that could also have been a ploy to get Netflix to renew at a very favourable rate. Then they'd stay together. There's no guarantee, and I've said it time and again, that Harry and Meghan are going to be parting. I'm not saying they will never part, but there's no guarantee that they're going to be parting. And many of the stories of them constantly being in danger of parting day after tomorrow, those stories emanate from them. And I have no doubt, thinking about it, that one of the motivations for Meghan and Harry to be promulgating the notion of a divorce, especially for Meghan to be doing it, because she's far more conniving than he is. She's far more intelligent than he is, which doesn't mean she's a genius, because she's certainly not. But remember the Vanity Fair thing came out, and that has been used, according to Hollywood insiders, as the bait for Netflix to be hooking onto the hook to keep Harry and Meghan. Well, who's hooking bait on whose line is the question I'm asking. So I make that point for what it's worth. Because when you're dealing with people who are so, quite frankly, convoluted and, wheels within wheels and laying red herrings all about the place. The only thing is, they've now laid so many red herrings that there's an almighty stink. But I hope that answers the question. Because has she ruined Netflix? No. Don't believe that they ever had a deal that was going to give them 100 million. Total rubbish. Jean Hunter, or Jeanne Hunter, I'm not sure which way she pronounces it, it's the French spelling, makes the point that taking on various personalities is typical of narcissists. It's eerie to watch in real life. Take it from me, it's pretty eerie to live with it as well. Narcissists are basically self-hating people who have no integrity and no real inner life. They really don't have much, if any, emotions. And if they have a combination of other personality disorders, you can depend upon it that they are going to end up having even fewer emotions of any depth. They might have, shall we say, the emotions they have are rage, or envy, but do they have empathy? By and large, no. Certainly a fully blown narcissist, especially one who's a dark triad personality, doesn't have empathy. They are sustained liars. Their whole life is a lie. Everything they say and do is a lie. I know this because I have lived through it. I have seen the falsity that we as a family were subjected to by my mother's narcissism. People like that, it is all an act. And it is amazing the extent to which they can keep up the act. But I'm going to mention someone else now who is very much in the Meghan mold, but is not malicious. She's not malicious. She's very manipulative. She is envious. She is an absolute genius at the clever put down. She is very selective in what she says and does, but she is sociopathic as well as narcissistic and manipulative. But she's not, for whatever reason, malicious. She is lazy, which maybe is the reason why she's not particularly malicious. But I think she's intelligent enough to have realized, and naturally intelligent enough, I should say. And also, she just doesn't have the rage that many narcissists have. And I've seen it come out very occasionally, which in the circumstances is nothing unhealthy, let's put it that way. But this person I'm describing is somebody who started from nowhere and has ended up where she wanted to be. Titled Nice House, married to a rich man, very good at playing the devoted friend and spouse, etc., but totally cold and ruthless with it. She is adept at dumping anyone and anything when the prospect of marrying the man she's married to came up. She was happy to dump her parents because they weren't good enough, because they were from a humble background. She was talked out of it by friends, and I'm not going to give too much information because I don't want anybody figuring out who I'm speaking about. But she was prepared to dump her parents and the rest of her family in pursuit of a previous object of ambition. She effectively dumped her child. When it was pointed out to her that since the man she was hoping to marry was a family man, she should simulate care for her family, and it would actually advance her cause if she did. She started to do so. It took me years to figure out because she was so adept at the games she played, and she, unlike Meghan, who flies over the radar, this one flies under the radar, and she is the best practitioner of falsehood I have ever seen. She is a superb phony. She could dupe practically anyone and has duped practically anyone. Not all, but practically anyone. Anybody with a heart and principles is duped by her. The people who have not been duped by her were those who were her kindred spirits. Let's put it that way. Meghan's failing has been to not be a good actress, which this other person is. And my mother could be a very convincing actress as well. And people like that, because they really don't have a core personality, they get through life by having superficial attributes of various core personalities. And one mask comes off and another one goes on. And it's not that they're really changing personality, it's that they basically don't have a personality. They're changing masks, they're changing roles, they're changing their act. It's not the same thing as multiple personality, because they are consistently empty. And we are going to end on a far more serious note. QPR says, Lady C, I saw your post on X about the disgraceful way the police have reacted to the Muslim influencer Azrar Rashid's incitement regarding the Maccabi Tel Aviv fans in their team's upcoming match against Aston Villa in Birmingham. Could you please address this on your channel It's too important to ignore. I can and I will. I agree with you. It's too important to ignore. I'm going to actually go to my post on X, if I may. And because I'm going to read it out, because it summarizes rather succinctly what I feel. And then I can comment on it afterwards. But basically, the core is this. As one of the original founders of the now defunct International Organization for a Just Peace in the Middle East several decades ago, with a Jewish-born maternal great-grandmother and being a member of the family of the Archbishop of Beirut, who invited in Sharon, who then proceeded to collude in the massacre of the innocents in Shatila and Sabra in 1983. No one in their right mind could say that I am either anti-Palestinian or anti-Israeli. Nor can anyone in their right mind say that I am anti-free speech, having been a vociferous supporter of people's right to express disagreeable or offensive opinions, as well as more agreeable and inoffensive ones. In the light of all of that, I feel I am well within my rights to ask when the West Midlands Police will be investigating Azra Rashid for the patently criminal act of incitement to violence against the supporters of Israel's Maccabi Tel Aviv football team in their match next month against Aston Villa in Birmingham, calling for his followers to show no mercy is as clear an incitement to acts of criminality as it is possible to make. Certainly a hell of a lot more insightful than anything Lucy Connolly came up with, I point out. And as a supporter of the even-handed application of the law, I now need to query when he will be charged under the Public Order Act of 1986, as well as the Race and Religious Hatred Act of 2006. Free speech is one thing. Incitement to violence on racial and religious grounds is another. While I am a strong supporter of all initiatives to achieve peace between the Israelis and Palestinians, I respectfully submit that anyone who does not appreciate the difference between that noble objective and this bald stab at racial and religious prejudice, with the unjustifiable misuse of one religion at the expense of another, condones this rank display of unjustifiable prejudice. How dare this hate-pushing bully have the temerity to call for acts of violence against supporters of a football team? How dare he use the suffering of people in the Middle East to further a vicious agenda which is patently based upon twisting the words of the Quran, to further an agenda that is patently illegal in this country and should be deplored worldwide by all conscionable people, irrespective of their religion. Rashid needs to be taught that free speech does not extend to calls for the deprivation of others' lawful rights and liberties. It demands respect for the rights of those whom he has chosen to incite violence against. It is outrageous that the police would then ban the Israeli supporters, thereby showing craven cowardice and a total lack of awareness of their role as the guardians of liberty and the law. Their rightful role is to uphold the rights of others. It is their duty to ensure that the Israeli supporters have their rights of attendance protected. We waste quite enough public money on frivolous police activities to be able to well afford its expenditure when protecting the civil rights of a group which is being threatened unlawfully. And if the police feel that they cannot keep the two opposing sides from conflict on the day, both should be banned, not just one. Anything else makes a mockery of our system of lawful tolerance. And I now call upon Nigel Farage, Kemi Badenoch, Keir Starmer, Shabana Mahmood, the Foreign Secretary, Dr. Wajid Akhtar, Secretary General of the Muslim Council of Great Britain, all law-abiding Muslims who have respect for the law and appreciate the civil liberties which are an integral part of what makes Britain so desirable a place to live in, Police Chief Constable Gavin Stevens, and anyone else who has this country's well-being at heart, to join me in demanding that the police rethink their ban and act to ensure that this outrageous abuse of our great British system of even-handedness and respect for the rights of others is brought to a swift halt. Any other outcome is rewarding incitement to hatred and appeasing those to whom we should be standing up and saying enough. If you want to hate, feel free to do so in the privacy of your own home, maybe even outside it, but you have to do it legally. Don't you dare overstep the mark and seek to browbeat others into being victimized by you by resorting to unlawful incitement to violence. The fact of the matter is, Rashid is using the Arab-Israeli situation in the Middle East, and he's not a Middle Easterner. He has no links to the Middle East whatsoever, save that he shares a religion with some of the inhabitants of the Middle East. But he otherwise has no link whatsoever to the Middle East. And he clearly doesn't understand, or if he understands, he doesn't care, that the Arab-Israeli conflict should not be hijacked by him and other people of his ilk to create prejudice against Jews or against anybody who supports an Israeli football team. You know, the Olympians in ancient Greece, the concept of the Olympiad was that even enemies would get together and compete against each other and suspend hostilities for sport. Why is this man being allowed to prevent people from exercising their lawful liberties in this country? Why has the West Midlands Police taken the decision, and I agree with Keir Starmer, it's a wrong decision, to prevent the lawful supporters of the Maccabi Tel Aviv football team from attending the event against Aston Villa? We squander a great deal of money in this country, and I have to tell you, I am peed off with it in a major way, because I work all hours of the day and night to not only keep this ship afloat, but to end up having to pay massive taxes to keep all sorts of deadbeats and bums who in luxury. And believe me, many of them are in luxury because most illegal immigrants in this country are actually put up in 4-star hotels. And they are given luxuries that ordinary working people in this country aren't given. And they're not even allowed to work, even if they wanted to. If we can afford to have our shores invaded and nothing of any consequence is done about it by this or previous governments or by the courts, the least the courts can do is enforce the law and make sure that the police, who are being paid by taxpayers like me, end up earning their salaries by protecting and, if necessary, putting barriers between the supporters of one side and another. This is an absolute outrage. I don't think I need to say more than that. I think you've got the point. And I think it is sufficiently serious that all of us should comment on it, because I'll tell you why. This is the thin end of the wedge. This is a hate-filled preacher calling for the law to be broken by his supporters to the detriment of the rights of people in this country to congregate freely. If they get away with this, it encourages others to do more of the same. And we, as a nation which is supposed to be law-abiding, needs to apply justice evenly across the board. Left-wing, centrist, right-wing, same justice. Muslim, Christian, Jew, Buddhist, whatever else, same justice. We cannot in this country allow any one religion to end up having its spokesman, whom I have to tell you, I do not think that the average Muslim, incidentally, would actually go along with any of the incitement that Rashid wants to. I do not think that the average moderate Muslim is at all going to hijack a Middle Eastern crisis to gain support for what is basically a move whereby the theocrats, because make no mistake about it, this Muslim influencer is a theocrat. And we live in a secular society. And one of the main struggles in the Middle Eastern situation is theocracy against secularism. I am not for a second justifying any of the atrocities that have taken place on either side. And they have taken place on both sides. And there is no doubt that for the last 77 years that Palestinian land has been occupied unlawfully. So in case anybody wants to hop on one side or the other of the bandwagon, forget it. I'm being totally even-handed. If the Rashids of this world have their way, we will then end up having what is happening in Afghanistan happen here. where the stadia in this country will become not only the venue for football matches where certain lawful people are prevented from attending, but they will even end up having, shall we say, lawful termination of life for fun. No, 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 no. We need to remember what Pastor Martin Niemöller said. First they came for X, then they came for Y, then they came for Z, and I was silent. It is up to all of us to protest now. And I would like everybody in this country who is listening to this and who has a vested interest in the rule of law in this country, irrespective of whether you are pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian, to understand this hate monger is hijacking a cause for his own ends, and we should not allow it. This country is governed by English law, and it should remain governed by English law. And we should not be tolerating the Rashids of this world. And I am also wondering when he's going to be charged. And I can tell you, if he's not charged, it's going to be an absolute disgrace and a blot on the legal system in this country. It is outrageous. And I think I have said enough for the moment on this. We will close with something rather more positive, which is the snippets from the concert in memory of the late Duchess of Kent by the London International Chopin Competition 11-year-old winner and the founder of it, that is Didi Redford and Arthur Haftman. And I will ask Sean to post a snippet of Hugo Vickers giving the welcoming speech, and then we will have a snippet of Didi Redford playing maybe a little bit of Handel, which she started with. Then she finished off with some Chopin, called popularly the Minute Waltz. And then we will have one selection of Arthur Haftman playing some Chopin. And hopefully that will uplift us all. And on that note, I'll say, please remember to send in any questions or topics you'd like me to cover with you. And thank you for listening. Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and boost? I gather there's such a thing called boost. Could you please boost? Thank you. Bye-bye.